Welcome back to another journey with the Crypto Foundation. I think it's time to review the next Solana chart in our series analyzing Solana. So let's just jump right in. In our Solana chart analysis part 1 video, the first one I did, I identified the or a few clusters here. The main red distribution area or resistance area, this specific resistance area here, and then the demand area by this orange box and then this green box here. Okay, and the charts were indicating that we can obviously see here that price broke down, spent some time here, created this new cluster here, rallied back above, tested it again, and then the third time I had predicted a high probability we would break into this box and enter this area, testing this support. I'm just going to play this video quickly for sake of reference.
Is enough. Weaker. And weaker in this case the second time, and then the third. And usually the third is enough. And if we do, then we look for the next area of support based on our methodology, which is areas of consolidation clusters. And that would be right here. That's why we see this green box.
So the top of that green box is approximately about $14 and change. Let's go back to TradingView and review the chart for Solana USDT on the weekly and see, based on first analysis of part 1 and part 2, what part of it we were accurate on and maybe what went against us. I know in some of the in the past Solana analysis videos that I did think that it was going to come into this area and test this next box right here. It wicked into that on the weekly. And if we change that to the daily, it actually looks like it pivoted perfectly above this area. We can see that it pivoted right in this area, right? For the most part, pivoted in this area, okay? And I will admittedly say that I was thinking that there is a good chance if it spent time in this consolidation area that it would make its way down. I felt like that was a high probability trade when we were looking at breaching here and then talking about what this may look like. But it obviously did not spend time below into this darker orange box, which was our green box from the last video. But this area here, it didn't spend time there. I'm going to mark it for the sake of clarity. It did not spend time in this area, right? This is this green box coming back that we established all the way from here, right? So it didn't spend time there. It actually wicked into it for one day and then pivoted around and then based back up above here. These are some Fibonacci levels, based above this larger orange box and then rallied back into the resistance. Based into the resistance here, we can see, right? Rallied. We can see here, it wicked into it, got rejected, based, rallied into it, and then now that resistance became support and rallied back up. Again, that's pretty obvious because it didn't spend time here. The more time it spent consolidating here, then it would likely be weaker, and the probability that I had suggested would have become reality. But in this case, it didn't pivot up. So it's nice to see it reacting to these boxes. And so we have to be unbiased and read the chart more than try to stick to a narrative because we want a cheaper coin or we're more bearish, right? We don't want to have any bias. We want to just lay out the zones, the charts, they lay out the blueprint and see what the chart tells us. So in this case, it rallied above. And of course, it rallied and really, really tested this area, right? And we know what that was. That was the news with Ripple winning, or at least the first positive news with Ripple in against the Securities Exchange Commission. And I called this on Twitter and other places that this was going to be a sell news event, and it did become a sell news event. It tested this Fibonacci level perfectly, created a massive wick, and then went back down into this this red right here consolidation. This red resistance zone. Okay, and now what have we done? We've broken that area and gotten back into right here, right? So that previously, this is a strong resistance for this local level. Going below it and spending time in the larger red box is not great, because if we start closing below this red box, this is speaking to now the next steps. I see a fourth break in here could be even worse. But again, speaking to not having biases, this is a perfect time to exercise psychology in trading and just be patient, right? If you have anxiety about buying or selling, I personally, again, not financial advice, but personally, I wouldn't act on that anxiety here. I would wait and see what happens here, and if there is another break, and then we go back down to this orange box, and then now consolidate it into it and test the lows and the realistic downside targets, which is in part two. I believe it's part two of the Solana video that I created on this channel. But before we get there, focus on what's happening here, right? Is this price going to just go sideways here? Is it going to go back up to here? Maybe test this downward sloping trend line. If we turn on the clouds, we can see we had the bearish action turn into some bullish action, but now it's creating these red clouds again. So I would wait for this to develop further to see if we're in this type of scenario and we go back down here. And then now we would have breached this area multiple times if we went back to the fourth time. Usually the third time is enough to, well, I did predict that the third time was enough to get into this box and test this next support area, but it rallied above. And it caught a lot of people buying here that were FOMOing and essentially buying the news, right? There's called sell the news event. So smart money would sell the news, and then retail would buy that news that they're selling. And so a lot of people got trapped there now, potentially down on their investment. So yeah, the best thing to do from my perspective is to be patient. If we go back to the monthly, I'm going to remove these Fibonacci's for now. We can see on the monthly, try to remove some of the noise, that we want to see what happens here, right? We want to see if maybe this monthly candle actually closes again here. So here it had barely closed under this red box, which again to me is not bullish at all. There was a lot of buyers that came in here, but then also a lot of sellers. So it's ranging in this kind of indecisive level, or this consolidation level. In the grand scheme of things, could this be a good area to buy at $20? Yeah, probably. But again, as I've said before, I'm willing to take the risk to see what happens here and see if this downside is confirmed, mainly because of the current landscape we're in with the macroeconomics, with liquidity, and who's your buyer essentially, who's your altcoin buyer in this market. As time goes on with rates increasing, that's going to eat away at people's disposable income. I see mainly smart money institutions playing at these ranges and accumulating. So the way I kind of look at it, very generalized, is do they require to flush out more of these folks here that bought the news by going into this area and testing these lows? And the biggest issue for me is that we have about 6 months of this, right? In about more than that, maybe 6 to 10 months before the halving. If you were to consider any rallies in the market occurring after after the halving. So it gives Solana USDT, the Solana USDT pair, plenty of time to make its way down here. So that's what I'll be watching for. But yeah, generally just to recap, we were correct in our analysis. The third breaking through it, the chart showing us that it held support here, rallied, this resistance was respected, it went above it. Really question, even at that point I kind of questioned it, like, really it's gonna go this far? I expected it to stop here, maybe here at 28, but yeah, the wick, I mean, it was a wick that was created on the weekly, right? On the monthly though, you can see this was just a wick, so cutting out the noise, it was contained well in this solid red box. And so that's our recap. Now we're below it. I had to give it some time before we're doing the next video in the Solana series, just to let this play out. Moving forward, we just want to be aware of our biases, make sure that we're paying attention if this keeps ranging here for the next 3 months, that maybe all we have is another wick down to test $16. I think that to me is the bullish scenario. I'm just gonna draw the path out for that. Again, this is speculating a bit, but if we have this type of action for the next 3 months, I could see that kind of showing that instead of this as being resistance, it's maybe starting to become support, right? Previous resistance maybe becomes support. And then maybe at the worst case, a fourth attempt just comes and wicks the $16 area and does not enter any further. So then we see a rally back into here, and then back to the races into mid and late 24. That's one scenario, again, speculating quite far out, right? So the other scenario is that we actually in the next month, which again, I'm ready to react on that. We see a break into here. See if this 16, the key here is that 16 does not hold, or 1650 does not hold, right? 1657. And if it doesn't hold, come in here and testing 14 again. And if that doesn't hold and we start seeing price action here, then we could see, I mean, this isn't let me redraw this quickly. So if we come back here, right, reject and go back in, we could still see these rallies, right, to get people thinking we're going to rally back up. But the downside would be we make our way down here again, maybe test a wick above that box, come back down, and 1185 is where I would be a buyer. Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully everything in the news stays bullish, because if things get too bearish, I don't think this scenario is going to be as likely. If things get too bearish, then I could see the price holding. So hopefully things are positive in the news, and we see the opposite in the charts. And as things are positive in the news and chart breaks down, then usually some FUD comes out in the news that helps drive that strength down in the charts. If you like the content, make sure to subscribe and tune in for the next video.